What's up, guys? Another daily morning breakdown here. Again, no actual plays, although some leans here. Both college football games, the market, at least I have a market read on both of these, and I can kind of figure out why the market seems to be leaning that way. I believe these are both Conference USA again. Wednesday night, Conference USA. America, fuck yeah. Florida International at Sam Houston. Sam Houston, they are up to -5, and they have 63% of the cash, even though 56% of the tickets are on Florida International, on FIU. And I think the glance at this, like the recreational bettor is going to see Sam Houston as an 0-6 team, and they're laying more than a field goal, laying 5 points over a 3-4 FIU team, even though FIU is 0-4 in conference. People might look at that and think, how can a 3-4 team be an underdog against an 0-6? The books are telling you Sam Houston is actually the better team here. Neither of these teams have won in conference, and Sam Houston has definitely had the tougher schedule. They started out the year facing BYU, Air Force, and Houston all in a row. Two of those games on the road. Air Force is actually a pretty good team this year. That was the game that they played at home. That was a fairly competitive game. The BYU one was too. BYU and Houston are both a little bit down this year, but they're still bigger conference teams. So those are bigger games, tougher games for Sam Houston. And then Sam Houston had to play at Liberty as well. They played competitively in that game. FIU also did face Liberty and got destroyed by them at home. But that's neither here nor there, really. Like that would be the one thing that would actually not put me on Sam Houston a little bit there, because of that weird like syllogism where people would see, hey, Sam Houston played Liberty competitively, FIU got destroyed by them at home, and Sam Houston was on the road when they did that. So that would be the one thing that might put recreational bettors on Sam Houston with me. But everything else, I think it's kind of like a trap sort of line here where Sam Houston, the winless team against a team that looks like they're like almost 500, and they're laying 5 points. Books are just telling you Sam Houston is the better team. That's the reason why Sam Houston appears to be getting the money. They are indeed the better team. I believe they are. So that's the only way I would lean in that game is Sam Houston. And then New Mexico State, UTEP. New Mexico State looks like they've gone up from -1.5 to -3 on the road. But it looks like they have 80% of the tickets, but only 56% of the cash. And I think UTEP would be the only way that I would lean in this one, as New Mexico State is the above 500 team. UTEP is below 500, but I believe UTEP, they themselves have had a tougher schedule than New Mexico State. They played at Northwestern, at Arizona. Those are two bigger conference teams, even though they did get blasted by both of those teams. That still is, that can explain two of their losses. They lost to UNLV at home. UNLV has been kind of a surprise team this year. They've been playing well. UTEP, they had like no actual FBS wins, I think, up until last week when they finally beat FIU, that FIU team I was just talking about. FIU, not very good, man. That was at FIU as well. So I think UTEP, that win might help them kind of start some like momentum there. That's a nice way to like break that like bad losing streak that you're on. I think UTEP is the undervalued commodity here, the undervalued team. They're the team that looks worse, but the line almost looks way too easy to take New Mexico State in this one. So that would be the only way I would lean there. The market seems to be indicating that as well, especially if the line came out like 1.5. It's almost like the books are just begging you to lay New Mexico State. They're up to 3 now, so some people apparently did do that, but I would only take the +3 with UTEP there, and it looks like they're getting more of the money than the tickets there, so that's the only way that I would lean there. NHL, there are 2 games. I don't know if I have much of a read on these. I can kind of just tell you what's going on in the market. Washington is at Ottawa. Washington, I believe they're coming off their first win. Finally, they won at home against Calgary, which is a game that I think I talked about on one of these videos, where I said that I kind of leaned to Washington in that one. The market seemed to be. Washington got that win. I believe that was an overtime win, but Ottawa is coming off a decent win of their own, which is over Tampa Bay, I believe. So I don't know if I have too much. There's not really much going on with the situation there, at least I would say. But what we can say is that in the market, And Washington's wins actually in a shootout, I believe, over Calgary. So they're coming off that. It looks like Ottawa's gone up from minus 140 to minus 164 on the money line. And this is saying they have 99% of the cash and 94% of the tickets. I don't know how much stock I would put into that, but it does look like there is movement on Ottawa. Some money coming in on Ottawa. I don't know if there's any value to be had at this point with the money line having gone up that much, but it looks like Ottawa is the side right now that's getting the money in the market. The other game, Pittsburgh-Detroit. Pittsburgh, they look like they have 62% of the cash, but only 50% of the tickets here. And that would indicate they have a higher cash percentage, but they've gone down from a minus 131 money line, according to pregame here, to minus 124 on the road. So that would indicate that there actually is some money on Detroit. I don't know which way to read this. These NHL games are both really difficult to read, but I'm just pointing out what's going on here because there are only 2 games. So you can kind of focus on them. Pittsburgh has won a couple games in a row. They beat the Flames and beat my bet in that one, which that was the game where I think the Flames actually played a lot better than the final score. It looks like the 5-2 final. There was an empty net there. The Flames were winning in the third period in that game. So that game is kind of not what it appears. Excuse me. Now Pittsburgh has to go on the road to Detroit. And Detroit's last game was another game that beat me at Columbus. That was a game I was just completely wrong on. Detroit dominated them in the second period and just won that game easily. That was coming off a fairly big win over the Lightning and having this game next. So I thought it was a good spot going against Detroit. So Detroit, even in a spot where it was possible they would come up flat, they played well. So they looked pretty good. So I think, I would lean slightly to Detroit. So I lean very slightly to Ottawa and Detroit in these ones, and that's just the way the line has moved in these games, has kind of moved in those directions there, but really not strong in any way. I would not put much stock into those at all. And baseball, there's kind of a lot going on in this game, kind of conflicting ways to read this game. The ALCS continues with Houston at Texas. Houston, not really in a good spot. They lost the first 2 games at home, and now they have to go to Texas, down 2-0, and it looks like definitely their starter tonight is Christian Javier, and then in their next game it might have to be Urquidy. This is kind of exposing Houston. Really, their starting pitching rotation is maybe not as good as it was last year, possibly. They have 2 good starters, I guess, in Verlander and Framber Valdez, and they lost both games that those guys started in this series. And then the back end of their rotation is Javier and Urquidy. That's not great. And what we see in the market here, 56% of the tickets on Houston, but only 52% of the cash, and Texas has gone slightly up, it looks like, from minus 125 on the money line to minus 126. So it looks like the market read is saying that there's reverse line movement there almost on Texas, going against where the majority of the tickets and the slight majority of the cash are, meaning that some of the bigger money, the more respected money, is on Texas there, potentially. I'm not sure if I entirely buy that. I think there are different ways to look into this. Texas has Max Scherzer pitching. He has not pitched for like a month. So there are a couple of different ways to read this in baseball. In other sports, when you have a star player come back from injury, you get like the reverse injured player theory that I talk about, where the line will kind of overreact to that player coming back. But that player kind of has to get readjusted. The team's chemistry has to kind of reform with that player. It happens in like football, especially football, basketball. The team has to kind of reacclimate to that player being back. And if they're winning with that team out, they've kind of gotten like a little bit complacent. In baseball, I think it's a little bit less of a phenomenon. And I think there is kind of a phenomenon where people haven't seen this pitcher in a while. They know there's so much focus on the starting pitcher. This guy's been injured for a while. He kind of is the guy. And I think the recreational bettors might kind of think a little bit opposite about it. Like, is this guy even ready to come back? So I think there's that aspect of it happening in baseball that kind of limits like the reverse injured player factor that happens in other sports. But I can tell you, so I kind of like being on a pitcher that comes back from an injury like that, because if they're coming back, especially in the playoffs, the teams telling you, they're indicating to you, this guy is ready to come back. We think he's ready. He's got to be 100%. He's good to go. So I think that is going to be the case with Scherzer here. However, because Texas is the home favorite here, they are the favorite. It's possible that you're not really getting any value there, even though they are kind of a small favorite, because there is still the name recognition with Scherzer. People will still see he's back. They know he's really good. He's been kind of hyped. Like they've been, the sports channels have been talking for a while about when Scherzer coming back. He might finally come back in the series. So that is kind of a big thing. So there still might be a little bit of that factor there where there's maybe the line is like a little bit jacked up on Texas with Scherzer coming back. You might not quite have any value there because of that. But then Houston is the desperate team, down 2-0 and having to go on the road. So they're almost in a must-win, even though this is the NLCS, so it's a 7-game series. Now, it's not technically a must-win yet, but they are basically done if they don't win this game. So there is that factor as well, and you could see that that means there's like some pressure on Houston. You could say that, well, that means Houston's going to be a little bit overvalued because of that factor, the desperation factor, where everybody knows it's like this must-win or virtual must-win. But because Houston's the underdog here, that might lessen that factor a little bit. And then I weigh the starting pitching matchup kind of heavily in these games. As you kind of do, maybe recreational bettors overvalue the starting pitching, but there is a lot that goes into the starting pitching, so I always talk about it in these games, and I think it is a strong factor, especially if there's a discrepancy between the two. What we see here, Scherzer against the Houston hitters over his long career, 287 opponent batting average, 157 at bats, so that's not really good. Houston's hitters that they currently have. And when I talk about how the hitters do against these pitchers, I'm always looking at not how the pitcher is done against this team, but literally against the list of all their hitters. You can see this on ESPN under the batter versus pitching stats. They list all the hitters that the team currently has. So I think that's a better indicator because that's actually who they're going to be facing here. So Houston has done a lot of the damage has been done by Michael Brantley, specifically, who's 20 for 54 against him. But overall, yeah, Scherzer has been bad against Houston with a 287 OBA and over 150 at bats. So that's not good, even though his stats this season have been good with a 3.77 ERA and 1.12 WHIP. So he has been good on the season. He's been the better pitcher on the season than Javier, but his stats against Houston are not good. Javier, on the other hand, 1.27 WHIP on the season and 4.56 ERA. Those are not impressive stats. Not great. Very middle of the road pitching stats for him. But in 123 at-bats for him facing Texas's hitters, he has a 244 OBA. So that's better. He's done fairly decent against Texas, even though Texas has good hitting. He's done better against Texas's hitters than Scherzer has done against Houston's hitters. So there are a lot of, like I said, there are a lot of conflicting factors going into this game. It kind of boils down to a market read for me when there are just so many conflicting factors here. And the read would still put me on Texas slightly with that like reverse line movement there. And with the fact that I think Scherzer may still be slightly undervalued, even though he's the huge name coming back from injury. And even though his stats are not good against Houston, that's like really the one thing. Because otherwise, I might want to be on him otherwise because he was the better pitcher on the season. But his stats against Texas or against Houston specifically kind of keep me off of it. But that would be like the slight lean for me there. And that is the rundown. I think the strongest play on the entire board tonight, and when I said it last night, I was right with South Alabama. They won in an absolute blowout. I think they won by like almost 50 points, which is just insane. But tonight, I would say Sam Houston State probably is the best read, the best market read out of all of these, and I think they're undervalued because they have no wins on the season. People are going to think they're not as good as Florida International, even though that is not the case, and the books are telling you that's not the case. And they have, it looks like it's a pros versus Joes type of situation a little bit, where the ticket percentage is on the other side, the money is on Sam Houston. So I think that is the strongest lean on the board here. But I don't know if any of these are actually bet worthy, but that's the rundown for today. Peace.